Yes, good morning, everyone. We will be discussing KNN. We have started discussion of KNN algorithm in the last class. So we'll continue that discussion. So a quick recap of what is there in chapter 3, part 3. So part 3 of chapter 3 is instance-based learning. So friends, we have yesterday in our class we have discussed what is the difference between inductive learning and instance-based learning. So under inductive learning, we have seen some algorithms like decision tree algorithm, naive Bayes algorithm, we have seen candidate elimination, we have seen find yes. So they all come under inductive learning or concept learning, you can say. So what is inductive learning and what is instance-based learning? What is the difference between these two learning methods that we have discussed in our last class? So a quick recap of what we have discussed in the last class. Instance-based learning means for a given instance means it comes under a concept of lazy learning, my dear friends. Right? Yesterday I used this word, right? Lazy learning. So lazy learning means we will not use training data immediately. Once the training data is available, we will not create a hypothesis. We will not do any sort of learning will not be done when the training data is given. Means we will try to do this classification or we try to do the what we say learning part only when there is a requirement, only when there is a query, right? So on that's the reason it is called as lazy learning. And instance based, instance means for a given instance at a particular point of time. Right now if someone wants to know that whether this particular instance belongs to class X or class Y. If you recollect our yesterday's example, we have taken an example of three classes, each represented with a different color, blue, pink, and green. And we wanted to know a particular point which was represented using black color. I wanted to know whether it comes under class blue, class pink, or class green, right? So for that, what we have done, we have applied k nearest neighbor algorithm, right? So friends, what we have done in k nearest neighbor algorithm, so we did not take this training data and we did not create any machine learning model or we did not generate any hypothesis. All those things we have not done. So if we do that, it is called as eager learning, opposite word of lazy, right? So if you try to recollect our previous algorithms of naive Bayes classifier, decision tree, candidate elimination, they are all eager learning techniques. Means we are eager to know how classification is actually done by looking at the training data. And if you say no, let the training data be available with me and I will use that training data only when there is a requirement, only when there is a need for classification, then only I will make use of my training data, then only I try to learn something from training data. And that kind of approach is called as lazy learning, right? So instance based learning is based on a principle called as lazy learning. So friends, if you recollect k nearest neighbor, what we have done in k nearest neighbor is, I'll just try to show that again, possible. So this is the algorithm which we have seen. This k nearest neighbor is also an important technique. So we try to recollect, revisit KNN again. So friends, I just imagine I have what are the colors, right? So I have some data points here. I have some data points which are represented with pink color, and maybe I have some data points in blue color. Somewhere here. And I may have some data points labeled as green color. So assume that this is my existing data, means these are the data points which I have drawn based on my training data. And if you remember, I represented x-axis as MSET rank and y-axis as intermediate marks. So based on that, whether the student may get seat in JNTU or Usmania University or KL University, like that we have used three classes in the last example. So blue will represent JNTU, pink will represent OU, green will represent KLU, something like that. So friends, now these data points tell me based on MSET marks and intermediate rank, what kind of seats people have got. So this is my previous training data which is available, means for which I know the outputs. Now what I want to know is, this is my test data. Suppose I have a point somewhere here, this black point, or I may have a point somewhere here, another black point. I may have a point somewhere here, right? So I may also have a point somewhere here. So let us assume these four black points represents my test data, and I would like to tell, or I would like to know whether this black point falls under class blue, class green, or class pink, right? So that is what is classification problem. I want to classify whether this new data comes under which particular class, or for a given data I want to tell whether the student gets a seat in JNTU, OU, or KLU. So what should we do in KNN algorithm? What is the procedure? Suppose this is the point I want to deal with. So what I will do is, I will try to find the Euclidean distance between this black point and this blue point. I will try to find the Euclidean distance between black point and green point. I will try to find Euclidean distance between this black point and green point. I will also try to find Euclidean distance between this black point and green point. So if you observe, I'll get the distances. I can treat them as ordered pairs, right? So this is my test data, my black point, and this one is the nearest neighbor N1. So between T and N1, what is the distance? I will get some value. Between T and N2, what is the distance? N2 is another neighbor. I'll get some value. Between T and N3, N3 is another data point, maybe blue, green, whatever it is, but another data point. So between T and N3, what is the distance? Between T and N4, what is the distance? So like that, I'll try to compute the distance, Euclidean distance between the test data point with all other data points. Now obviously I'll get some numerical answer, which is the Euclidean distance between points. Then what I will see is, suppose N1, N3, N4, let us assume N1, N3, N4, let us assume they represent blue class, right? Similarly, N2, N5, then N6, let us assume there are 6 points or maybe 9 points. These three represents, let us say, green color. Similarly, remaining 3 points like N7, N8, N9, let us assume they represent class pink. Now what I will see is which set of data points or which classes, like class blue, green, or pink. I will try to see which data points of a particular class are offering me the less distance. How close is my T, right? How close is my T with this first category? How close is my T with this second category? How close is my T with my third category? So depending upon that, if I find that the distance between P and the points which belong to class blue, let us say P is very close to class blue when compared to class green and pink, then what I will do is I will assume that even this black point belongs to class blue, right? So I will try to make this one as blue. So this one will also be converted into blue, right? So this is what we have understood in KNN algorithm, right? So this is what is a quick recap of what is KNN, right? So we will go back and we will see some other important points related to KNN. Meanwhile, any doubts? Yeah, no doubts. So let me move on. Yeah. So under instance-based learning, K nearest neighbor is an important algorithm. Of course, you can expect this in your exam also. So K nearest neighbor we have seen. Now after that there are a couple of concepts, like three small concepts are there. Locally weighted regression, radial based functions, and lazy and eager learning, right? So we'll move on and we'll try to understand. So the key idea of instance-based learning is now clear. Now this is an important point. You can even get this one as a part A question, my dear friends. When to use K nearest neighbor? This is an important point. When to use K nearest neighbor? Can I use K nearest neighbor in every problem, every classification problem? Right? So K nearest neighbor or instance-based learning should be used, or it can be used only if your instances can be represented in the form of real numbers, and R power n means finite set of real numbers. So the meaning of this R power n is R power n means I should be in a position to represent the instances in the form of R1, R2, R3 like this up to Rn, means they are finite, right? Not infinite, they are finite. Maybe 5, 10, 20 like that. So if your instances map to real numbers, means if you can represent your training data in the form of numbers, real numbers, right? Not just zeros and ones, not just Boolean values. If you can represent them in the form of real numbers, then only you should go for instance-based learning. That too, it should be of limited size, means the number of instances should be finite, right? And specifically, there is a number given, preferably less than 20, right? Number of attributes, if the number of attributes are less than 20, then you can go for K nearest neighbor. If you recollect the example of our play tennis data set, we had 4 attributes, right? Overcast, temperature, humidity, and wind. So 4 attributes, probably you can use K nearest neighbor. So like that, if the number of attributes are less than 20, fine, you can go ahead and you can use K nearest neighbor. You may be surprised, like, is it possible that we have more than 20 attributes? Means yes, it is possible, right? In many real-time data sets, you have attributes, you have more than 20 attributes. If possible, I'll show you one data set uh, somewhere in our maybe next class, or if possible by the end of this unit, in which we have 39 attributes, right? So that is possible. So 20 attributes, don't think that it's a very big number. The data sets will have more than 20 attributes. Even there are some data sets with 30 attributes, 40 attributes, 50 attributes. So K nearest neighbor, or you can say instance-based learning, can be applied only if you are dealing with attributes which are less than or equal to 20, right? So, and when you have a lot of training data, if your training data is huge, then also you can go for instance-based learning, right? So that is one point. Second one, what are the advantages of instance-based learning? Friends, advantages of KNN, advantages of instance-based learning, both are same because KNN is a example of instance-based learning algorithm. So KNN is based on instance-based learning technique. So advantages of KNN or advantages of instance-based learning, both are same, right? So what are the advantages? What are the advantages of instance-based learning? Right. Training is very fast, right? Training is very fast. Learn the complex target functions. Don't lose information, right? I'm sorry. So training is very fast. Why do you think training is very fast in instance-based learning? Why do you think training is very fast? Any guess? Any guesses? Why do you think training is very fast? B5, step 3 and 4. We will see that. We will come back. Fine. Any guess? Why do you think training data is training KNN is faster? Any guesses? It will learn nothing. I didn't get you. The reason why training is faster in instance-based learning or KNN algorithm, the reason is in the very beginning, in the first point we have seen, instances map to points in R, means here R means real numbers, that too finite set of real numbers. So friends, what will happen in this KNN algorithm is, please observe, long back we have discussed two topics called as, I told you some basics of linear algebra are also required for you. If you remember, we have defined a word called as scalar, right? And we have defined a word also called as vector. Right? So friends, scalar means a single number, some number like 10. Whereas vector means it is an array of numbers which together represents a particular quantity, 10, 20, 26, 30, something like this. So if at all you are dealing with vectors, obviously the computation and training the data, it will take a lot of time. So here in KNN algorithm, there are two reasons why we say training is fast. The reason number one is entire data is numerical data, that too scalar quantities, right? If you notice the first point says instances map to points in R, means for real numbers. If your data contains only numbers, then you can go for KNN, training will be fast. For example, if you are, KNN is a classifier, right? So for example, if you want to do image classification, how do we represent an image? Suppose the problem in my hand is image classification, right? I want to do image classification, right? So suppose you give me a image of a person, I should tell whether that person is wearing spectacles or not, right? So image classification I should do. or I need to tell whether that person what we say is having hair or he is a bald hair, something like that. Image classification I should do. Now tell me, how do I represent an image? Right? How do I represent an image? Any idea? Any idea? Right? Because a lot of image processing applications are done using machine learning. So do you know how we actually represent images? No guess. So what we do with images is, obviously you can't load an image as it is and you can't really run a program on that image. So what we do is images are converted into numbers, my dear friends. Images are actually converted into numbers, especially they are features of the images are extracted and they are represented using vectors, right? Not even vector, they are represented using matrices, right? So a image will look something like this. 1 2 3, something like this. What we say, a 2 by 2 matrix, or 3 by 3 matrix. So when I represent not just entire image, my dear friends, a small feature of an image will be represented with a 3 by 3 matrix, or even beyond that, 3 by 8 matrix, 3 by 8 matrix. Just imagine a 3 by 8 matrix, how big it is. And like that, all features of the image should be represented or converted into 3 by 8 matrices or 8 by 3 matrices. And then you run some algorithms on it. So obviously it will become very, very complex. So friends, for these kind of applications where your data is in the form of vectors, right? Vectors or matrices or tensors, then KNN is not suitable, right? So if you are dealing with scalar data, if the data is scalar, then KNN can be used for classification, right? So that is one of the reason why. One second. Why do we say training is fast? Because it is already recommended that you should have instances in the form of real numbers, and the number of attributes must be less. So obviously you can go for your training can be expected to be fast. And if you are using dealing with scalar data, now scalar computations are can be done very quickly. Even though you have large scale data, no issue. If your data is a scalar, right, then if you have more amount of data also, it will not create any computational problem. If you have data in the form of vectors, matrices or tensors, then only it will become a problem, right? So what are the advantages? So training can be done fast, it can learn complex target functions, and it will not lose the information. Means when it can't lose the information, obviously the error rate will be minimum. So you can expect better accuracies with KNN algorithm. But there are a couple of disadvantages also. Slow at query time. Slow, it is very slow at query time. Easily fooled by irrelevant attributes. Easily fooled by irrelevant attributes. What do you mean by irrelevant attributes? What do you mean by irrelevant attributes? Any guesses? Irrelevant attribute. Irrelevant attribute means it can be an outlier. Right? What is an outlier? Any guess what do you mean by outlier? We will talk about irrelevant attribute also. So any guess what is outlier? Anybody? What is outlier? No guesses? Yes, respond. Outlier. I'll give you an example of outlier. For example, friends, let us assume I have 60 students in my class, right? In a class, not my class, in a class. Let us assume all 59 students failed, right, and scored less than 10 marks, right? Then what will be the average of that particular class in that subject? What will be the average? What will be the average? Average will also be less than 10, right? Right. So originally it gives an impression that the average will also be less than 10. But one student's marks we have not yet discussed. 59 people failed and they scored less than 10 marks. Right. So friends, just imagine if 59 students in a class have failed in a subject, what would have happened to that 60th student? Maybe, what do you understand? Maybe the paper was tough and all 59 students failed. So what should have happened to that 60th student? Even that 60th student, most probably he might have failed, right? Please respond. Most probably that 59 60th student should have also be failed, right? What is your guess? What might have happened to that 60th student? What is the probability that 60th student was failed or passed? Any guess? 59 students failed and they got less than 10 marks, right? What what happened to 60th student? Can you guess? Even he might have failed, right? So please respond. Please respond in the chat box. Five J4, 514, 588, 572, M naught, G9, F9, E3. Understanding the question paper? No, no. What might have happened to that 60th guy? Whether he was passed or failed, and what is your guess? Most likely, even that 60th student should also fail the exam. Most likely, he might have topped. Okay. Now see here. For example, let us. For example, maybe the 60th student also failed and he got 9 marks. But while typing the marks, it was typed as 90 marks. Typographic error, typing error. Just imagine, even that 60th fellow failed. Maybe he got 9 marks while entering in the Excel sheet. Instead of 9, it was by mistake entered as 90. So what will happen if I have this 90? What will be its effect on the overall average? Don't you think it will affect the overall average? By mistake, it was entered as 90. So don't you think it will have an effect on overall average? So what will happen? See here, I'll try to explain you by drawing it. So all 59 students got less than 10 marks. So let us say these are marks. These are rule numbers. So rule number 1, rule number 2, rule number 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, like that. These are marks: 5, 10, 15. This is 10, right? 10, 20, somewhere here 90. So if you observe, for all 59 students, what will happen, sir? Rule number 1, less than 10 marks. Somewhere here I'll get the dot. Rule number 2, 8 marks. Somewhere here I'll get the dot. Rule number 3, somewhere here I'll get the dot. So what will happen is, I'll get what we say, if I try to plot it, I'll get a graph something like this. All points are very, very close to 10. Now all of the sudden, this is 60th student, actually even he got 9 marks only, but it was a mistake, and that fellow's marks are 90. In somewhere here. So don't you see any difference, my dear students? Don't you see any difference? All 59 points are in one region. All 59 points are in one region. Only one point is somewhere far away, and this kind of data is called as outlier. Abnormal, you can say abnormal, outlier. Right? So all students are exhibiting some set of behavior. One student is totally exhibiting a unique performance. So most of the time it will be done because of a mistake or error. So if these kind of outliers are there in the data set, then what will happen? If I try to find average, I'll get a different average, because for one student we got 90 marks. So like that, if I have 2 or 3 outliers, then just imagine I have a couple of outliers. Then what will happen? All these 3 outliers will definitely have an impact on the average, and it will give me a wrong average, right? So outliers or irrelevant attributes may affect the accuracy of the KNN algorithm, right? Is it clear? Is it clear? What is outlier? Is it clear to everyone? So easily fooled by irrelevant attributes or outliers. Right? See here, curse of dimensionality. This is another problem. So dimensionality means the number of attributes. So if you have more number of attributes also, then even in that case, KNN's accuracy can be affected. Right? Curse of dimensionality. Imagine instance described by 20 attributes. An instance is described by 20 attributes, but only 2 are relevant to target function. Only 2 are relevant to target function. So what do you mean by this? 1 second. Let's show you an example. Yeah. See here, I have a data set in which the outcome variable is attrition. Attrition means a person has left the company, right? So attrition, yes means he has left the company, no means he is with the company. Yes, 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 no, yes, yes. So yes means he has left the company. Now this is my outcome variable. Attrition is my outcome variable. Now see here, salary, shifts, right? Some other parameters like number of children, right? Place of stay, right? Uh, country, right? Then gender, caste, something like this. Just imagine I have these attributes, my dear friends. Please try to observe. Intentionally, I gave some irrelevant attributes only. Attrition means a person is leaving the company. He is quitting the company. That is called as attrition rate. So if the outcome is yes means he has left the company, outcome is no means he is working with the company, he is with us. So see the parameters. Mostly why a person will change the company, maybe he is not happy with the shifts, a lot of night shifts are there, so the person is not happy, or salary can be an issue, right? Place of stay. So if you are staying in a village, or if you are staying in a city or a urban area, semi-urban, right? I don't think place of stay will have a serious impact on working, leaving a company. Number of children, whether you have 2 children, 3 children, or 4 children, you have to work, right? You can't say I'm unable to work because I have 3 children. It's not correct. In any case, you have to work, right? Country, gender, caste. So can you think that these 4 or 5 what we say columns, do you think they seriously affect the performance of a person? Do you think they seriously affect the performance of a person, or do you think they affect the decision of the person to leave the company? Right? I think salary and shifts will have a direct influence on the attrition rate. Right? Suppose if you change the company also, your number of children will remain same. If you have 3 children, if you change the company also, it will be 3 children. Place of stay, country, gender, caste, these things should not have the effect on the attrition rate of a company. So curse of dimensionality means curse of dimensionality. So what do you mean by curse of dimensionality? If at all you have number of attributes, more number of attributes, and again in that, if you have some irrelevant attributes, those irrelevant attributes can also affect the accuracy of the KNN algorithm, right? So is it clear what is curse of dimensionality? Please respond in the chat box. Please respond in the chat box. Curse of dimensionality, is it clear to everyone? Fine. So it's already 10:20. Yeah, right. So we will see what is this remaining 3 topics: weighted regression, We have three small topics in KNN in instance-based learning: locally weighted regression, radial-based functions, and case-based reasoning. The three small topics in another one class we can complete it. So we will discuss these three things in our next class, right? Thank you.